Hello, first graders. All right, today we're going to be talking about space. So we're going to start off with where is the sun, moon, and stars in our universe? That is our lesson for today. So on the left, you can see that the sun has got his big eyes. He's got his big smile on his face. He's excited for today's lesson. Then you can look over to the right side of the screen, and there's Earth and the moon, and they're hanging out together, big smiles on their faces. And as you can see, it says they're best friends because they're always together. All right, here we go. All right, so first we're going to go over today's standard for today's lesson. It's going to be use observations or models of the sun, moon, and stars to describe patterns that can be predicted. All right, I know that sounds a little lengthy and kind of difficult, but no big deal. You guys will get it once we're done. All right, so to start off, we're going to go ahead and start off with our vocab. So the vocabulary for today's lesson, we're going to talk about space stuff. All right, so the first vocabulary word is going to be axis. So an axis is an imaginary straight line around which an object spins. So when you think about an axis, the easiest way to think about it is going to be like, so think about the Earth and how the Earth spins. Well, think about the Earth has to sit on, it's like it's sitting on something, and it's spinning around that one thing, and it's like rotating around that one thing. So, for example, let's say you have a toothpick. So take a toothpick and you stick a grape on that toothpick. The grape is going to be in the middle, and the toothpick is going to be all the way down to the middle of the grape. So the toothpick is the grape's axis. It's kind of a little different way to look at it. All right, and the next word kind of goes along with axis as well. So it's going to be rotate is our next vocabulary word. It's an object that turns or spins around a point located at the center. So, like I said, the Earth will rotate on its axis. Just like if you took the grape and you turned the grape, then you would be rotating the grape on its axis. It's kind of a little cute way to think about that. All right, the next word is going to be phase. So when we think of phase, we think about different phases of the moon. We'll talk about that once we get started in our lesson after our vocabulary. And then, so a phase is a certain stage in a cycle of constant change. All right, next word is going to be constellation. Now this one's kind of a bigger word, but no big deal. A constellation is a group of stars that form a pattern in the night sky. So when you think about a constellation, you can think about, oh, you're playing connect the dots in the sky with the stars. That's the easiest way to think about that. We'll do a little activity on that too. I'm super excited about that. The next word, if I can get it to change. All right, the next word is going to be orbit. So orbit is the path of an object around a certain point in space. So when you think about orbit, just think about the Earth. The Earth orbits the sun. So it goes around and around and around. It always goes and follows the same path. So it always orbits the same way. So it's always doing the same thing. And our last vocabulary word for today's lesson is going to be cardinal points. So that's also kind of a bigger word, but you guys will get it, no big deal. Cardinal points are the four main points of the compass. So you have north, east, south, and west. And east and west are going to be the ones that are important for our today's lesson. But just remember that about a compass. So the easiest way to think about that is you're going to go clockwise in your head. So think about north is at the top, east is on the right, south is on the bottom, and west is on the left. So you can think about it like this. Never eat sour worms. Because who would want to eat sour worms? That's crazy. All right, let's go ahead and get started with our lesson, guys. So for the first thing I want you guys to do, if you will pause the video real quick and go ahead and answer number 1 on your activity worksheet. All right, welcome back, guys. So the first question, how do we know that the sun, the moon, and the stars will all appear in the sky sometime tomorrow? How do we know that? Oh, it's not working. All right. We know this because there is a certain pattern for when we see the sun and moon and the stars every single day. It's always the same. The Earth, where we live, is always rotating on its axis. Always rotating on its axis. Remember what we just talked about in our vocab, always rotating on its axis. So it takes an entire day for the Earth to spin around on its axis one time. So it takes a whole day. So in the little video, you can see that the Earth is rotating on its axis, and it takes a whole day. So that means it takes 24 hours to rotate, and that's why there is 24 hours in a day. All right, I'm going to move on. What rises in the sky and sets every morning? What rises in the sky every morning and sets every single night? What is that thing that does that in the sky? That's right, it's the sun. The sun rises every morning and it sets every night. So in the little video you can see it. He's coming up. He's like, "Good morning, guys. I'm here. I'm here to brighten your day." And he's going to be in the sky all day until he goes to sleep. All right, so the sun, here's where we're going to learn about those cardinal points. We got to remember those. So the sun rises in the east and sets in the west every day. So it's going to come up in the east and it's going to set in the west. So the east and the west are a part of those cardinal points that we talked about. So in the little bottom corner there, you can see the little compass and kind of think of, remember, never eat sour worms, easiest way to remember that. So the sun rises in the east, sets in the west. You can think of it like rises and it goes all the way, does like a big arch, and then it goes to sleep. When it goes to sleep, it goes to sleep in the west part of the sky. All right, moving on. So when do we see the moon in the sky? When do we see the moon? All right, we see the moon in the sky during the nighttime and early in the morning. So if you think about it, if you guys are getting up and getting ready to go to school, getting ready, you probably go outside and like the sun's kind of shining, but it's still pretty dark outside. If you look up, you can normally see the moon. It's not super dark, but you can still normally see it. And so think of it this way, when the sun goes to sleep, the moon comes and keeps us company. So there's always one of them in the sky. So if the sun's not in the sky, then the moon's going to be in the sky. So we always have one of those in the sky. All right, so it takes the moon. See, in this little video, you can see the moon is orbiting the Earth. So remember that. We talked about that, how the we talked about how the Earth orbits the sun, but the moon also orbits the Earth. So it follows that same path every single day. It goes the same path. So it takes the moon around 29.5 days to complete its orbit around the Earth. So it takes around a month for the moon to go all the way around the Earth just one time. All right. Now, when we see the moon, does it always look the same? Think about that. Does the moon always look the same? So the moon goes through phases. It goes through phases, and it is another pattern in our solar system. So in this little clip here, you can see that it's going through the phases really quick, but I just wanted you guys to see kind of what it looks like. And remember, phase was another one of our vocabulary words. So I am going to talk a little bit about the phases of the moon, but they're not super important for you guys to remember. I just need you really to remember like 2 of them, but we'll go ahead and run through them real quick. So we have the new moon, which is the first one. Then we have the waxing crescent, the first quarter, the waxing gibbous, the full moon, the waning gibbous, the third quarter, and the waning crescent. Now, I know that those are big words and it's a lot of information that I just threw at you at once, but that's totally cool. So all you guys need to remember is the new moon and the full moon. Those are going to be the 2 that are super important to kind of keep in mind. The full moon, which is halfway through the whole rotation of the phases of the moon. The full moon is when we see the entire moon in the sky. So when you look up in the sky and you see a big bright circle, that is the full moon. And that's probably the one you guys are most familiar with. Now, the new moon is going to be the first phase in the whole phases of the moon. And normally when there's a new moon, we don't see the moon in the sky. Just because the way the sun and the earth are positioned, we just don't see that shadow on the moon. So remember, like I just said, the moon phases are caused by what we can see here on Earth. So whether that be we see a full moon, we see new moon, we see half of a moon, whatever it may be. But just kind of keep in mind the new moon and the full moon. So we're going to move on. All right, if you guys will go ahead and stop the video real quick and answer number 2 on your worksheet. All right, welcome back, guys. So we're going to go over number 2. What does your full moon look like on your paper? So if you guys put it like this, if you colored in your full moon like the one below, here, let me move out of the way. If you guys colored it in like that, you are correct. Remember, we just talked about it. The full moon is going to be when we see the entire moon in the sky. All right, moving on. When do we see stars in the sky? So when in the day do we see stars? we see stars in the night, during the nighttime. So stars are these really big spheres of super, super hot gases that burn really, really, really far away in the universe. But they're so big and they're so bright that we can still see them here on Earth. But even though they are really big, they're really teeny tiny to us when we look up in the sky just because they are so far away. So earlier, when I was telling you guys about the constellations, now we're going to talk about those. Constellations, like I said, are those when you look up in the sky and see stars that are lined up certain ways and they connect to each other, that makes them constellations. Two of the most known constellations are going to be the Little Dipper and the Big Dipper, and I have them in the corner down here, and you guys can check those out. You've probably heard of those. Maybe your mom or dad's been like, oh, look up in the sky, there's the Big Dipper and the Little Dipper, just because they're two of the most known constellations and normally two of the easiest ones to find in the sky. So that is what a constellation is. Remember, you're just connecting those dots in the sky. All right, if you guys will go ahead and pause your videos real quick and go ahead and do the rest of the worksheet. All right, welcome back, guys. So we're going to go ahead, I think it's number 3. I think that's the next one we're going to start on is number 3. And so number 3 is I wanted you guys to draw your own constellation that you would like to see every night in the sky. So on the side here, we've got some different constellations. I didn't name them. I just put them on there so you guys could look and see what some of them do look like. These are some of the constellations that we have in our sky. And of course, I had to do my own constellation so you could see what I would want to see in the sky. And I want to see a big smiley face. I did a big smiley face because I love science and I think constellations are so cool and I absolutely love space. And I love teaching space to you guys. So big smile on my face when I do when I talk about space. All right, now I wanted you guys to go ahead and do the rest of the worksheet. So go ahead, you can either pause it right now if you guys didn't do it a second ago. Go ahead and pause the video one last time. Go ahead and do number 4 and number 5. All right, welcome back, guys. I'm sorry, I should have told you to pause it and go ahead and finish the rest of the worksheet on that last one, but I forgot. So we're back and we're going to do number 4 and 5 real quick. So what picture did you guys choose for number 4? So I wanted you guys to pick the picture where the sun would be at 2 o'clock in the sky. So when you think about 2 p.m., you guys are normally still in school, and normally when you're in school, where is the sun in the sky? So the first picture, we have the sun is all the way up in the sky, shining really bright, and it's up there hanging out and doing its thing. And in the middle picture, there's no sun at all. There's no sun. It's just dark, and there's stars in the sky. And then that last picture, the sun's hanging out in the grass. Looks like it's trying to come up, but it's not made it up yet. All right, so which did you guys pick? We'll go ahead and go over the correct answer. So if you guys chose the first picture, that's going to be right. You guys are right. So big thumbs up if you got that first picture. And remember that the sun is always in the sky shining around 2 p.m. unless it's raining or cloudy outside. All right, and we're going to go on to number 5 real quick. What was your favorite vocab word for today's lesson? So just remember, we'll run over them real quick. We've got the axis, rotate, phase, constellation, orbit, and the cardinal points. Remember that, the points on the compass. So, of course, I had to pick which one was my favorite. And today, for today's lesson, constellation was my favorite because I love constellations. I think they're so cool, and it was definitely my favorite. All right, so go ahead and we're going to close out today's lesson. I just want you guys to remember that the Earth orbits the sun and the moon orbits the Earth. It's one big daily pattern that we go through every day. In this little video on the side here, you guys can see that it's kind of the Earth's kind of blowing the moon to kind of get it to like, go ahead, buddy. And they're all smiling and going around. They're having a great time. And just remember that that is one of the big patterns in our daily lives that we go through. And I love today's lesson. I hope you guys learned a lot, and I hope you guys know more about the Earth and the sun and the moon and the stars. And yeah, so have a great day, first graders.